Well, with much of the focus on Donald Trump and his miraculous survival, we cannot afford to take our eyes off the man who's currently running the country. Unfortunately, it's 81-year-old Joe Biden. Now, in an interview with Complex that has just dropped, he claimed inflation was 9% when he took office. It was 1.4%, but hey, let's not let the truth get in the way of a good story.
One of the biggest criticisms of your presidency has been inflation. Ironically enough, the shoes that I'm wearing right now are called the Air Force One. They used to be $90. Now they're $115. A dozen eggs cost $4 now. Who's to say that if you were reelected, these pair of shoes right here wouldn't cost $130 or a dozen eggs wouldn't cost $8?
Every major economist in the world, 16 Nobel laureates on the economy, said I've done an incredible job. It was 9% when I got it. It's down to 3%. It's going to go down to 2%.
And this isn't the president having a classic Joe Biden moment where he doesn't know where he is or what he's saying. This is a message that he has been saying on repeat.
No president's had the run we've had in terms of creating jobs and bringing down inflation. It was 9% when I came to office. 9%. I think inflation has gone slightly up. It was at 9% when I came in, and it's now down around 3%.
You know, I see that, and I see a leader who reeks of desperation. Joe Biden either still hasn't figured out that the American people are smart. Most people know when they're being lied to. They also have the resources to simply fact check. Or Joe Biden has lied about this so much, he actually believes it to be the truth. Now, in another interview with NBC that has just been released today, which is his first televised interview since Donald Trump was almost shot dead on stage, the president was happy to lecture the country on rhetoric, which is important. We need that message to be crystal clear, but refuses to apologise for the language he used in the days leading up to this assassination attempt.
Let's talk about the conversation this has started, and it's really about language, what we say out loud and the consequences of those. You called your opponent an existential threat on a call a week ago. You said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. There's some dispute about the context, but I think you appreciate that.
I didn't say crosshairs. I was talking about focus on. Look, the truth of the matter was, what I guess I was talking about at the time was, there was very little focus on Trump's agenda.
Yeah, the term was bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him.
Okay, mistake. Oops. He is the president of the United States. He knows the power of his language. But no, it shouldn't really matter what he says. Just look over there. Look at what some of the Trump fanatics have said in the middle of America. That is what's really dangerous.
People have signs there, big Trump signs with middle signs saying F Biden, and the little kid standing there putting up his middle finger. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that is just inflammatory and a kind of viciousness.
Donald Trump was almost killed on Saturday. It should go without saying that the language from our leaders is so critically important. Joe Biden is calling to cool down the rhetoric now. Yes, we need that. But you be the judge if you think this president is taking any responsibility for the language he has been using time and time again in this election campaign.
Donald Trump is a genuine threat to this nation. He's a threat to our freedom. He's a threat to our democracy. He's literally a threat for everything America stands for.
So what will Joe Biden do now to change the rhetoric in the US? Essentially, not much.
What can you and what will you do, at least things you can control, to lower down the temperature, the rhetoric out there?
Continue to talk about the things that matter to the American public.
We'll get back to Joe Biden's train wreck interviews in a moment, because inflation isn't the only thing the president lied about. It is worth pointing out, since Donald Trump was shot in front of his supporters on live television, have we seen people rioting, looting, talking about some kind of upheaval? No, we haven't. For the most part, we've seen people coming together and praying. Just remember that when Joe Biden or someone else from the left tries to tell you that Donald Trump and his supporters are dangerous people. Now, the president was asked by NBC a simple question. Was what happened on Saturday a massive security failure?
Another question, if I can, about Saturday. Of course, the former president was wounded. One of his supporters died. A couple of more people were seriously injured. Was this a massive security failure?
I have had 2 meetings in the Situation Room with all the intelligence communities, FBI, Secret Service, et cetera, and I've asked for a totally independent analysis, and we'll see what happens when that comes back.
We'll see. He can't even say it out loud. The answer is yes, Joe Biden. A father was killed, and Donald Trump came this close. And Joe Biden, well, has he heard from the Secret Service director?
Is it acceptable that you have still not heard, at least publicly, from the Secret Service director?
Oh, I've heard from him.
That's a weird answer, given the Secret Service director is a woman, Kimberly Cheatle. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump has arrived at the Republican National Convention. It was an emotional and powerful moment, I can tell you that much. Here is the coverage on Sky News Australia.
Donald Trump has received a raucous standing ovation at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. Wearing a bandage on his right ear, Trump sat alongside the man he's selected to be his running mate for the upcoming election, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life.
Washington correspondent Annalise Nielsen is in Milwaukee. You were there for that moment. It was quite the reception, Annalise.
It was, and we were being teased all day that this was on the cards, that Donald Trump was going to come in. There was discussion because he'd come in on the first day of the 2016 convention, but so much was uncertain given the fact he was almost assassinated just a few days ago, and he had remained defiant. He'd come to Milwaukee on schedule, saying he wasn't going to let this shooter dictate what he did and when, but there was still that question about whether he would appear to have that formal endorsement of his vice presidential candidate pick. So I can tell you, in the room when he came in, because I was facing the camera, I felt it and heard it before I saw it. The moment he popped up on that screen with the live feed of him coming into the building, everyone went wild, and there was just that sense of everyone looking at what had happened to his ear. We haven't seen how bad the damage is yet, and just that sense of how close it was, just a few centimetres either way, and it could have been catastrophic. So to see him walk in here just completely unfazed with a bandage on his ear was stunning. And I think we played a bit before, but let's play it again, just how the room reacted when Donald Trump entered. That's music to the ears of campaign leaders, because they need enthusiasm. This is not a compulsory voting country. That makes a difference. And fight, fight, fight is exactly what they want to hear from all those rank and file members who've been gathered here throughout the day and who are going to be here for the next 3 days for the convention and will be prosecuting the case, that will be charged with making the case, I should say, for the Trump campaign over the coming months. J.D. Vance is an interesting pick. He comes from very humble beginnings. He's the author of Hillbilly Elegy, talking about his very rough upbringing, a mother addicted to drugs, and was very close to his grandmother growing up, went on to achieve success going to Yale Law School, in the Marines, and then a very young senator. So that youth as well will be used as a comparison to the Biden-Harris campaign, with all the focus on Joe Biden's age and how he's faring on that front. J.D. Vance woke up this morning not knowing he was the vice presidential candidate pick, and ended the day here with thousands of people cheering their support and by the side of Donald Trump. It really is an extraordinary moment in any presidential campaign to see the elevation of these people who fight tooth and nail through all the twists and turns of political life to get to this point. And he talked about how emotional it was in an interview with Fox News to get that call today.
He just said, look, I think we've got to go save this country. I think you're the guy who can help me in the best way. You can help me govern. You can help me win. You can help me in some of these Midwestern states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and so forth. And he said rightfully that we have been very, very close for a long time, but especially since I endorsed you in 2022. And I would not have won that race without Donald Trump's endorsement. And the president's trust then and his partnership since then has been something I value a great deal.
The criticism came right away from those who aren't fans of the Trump campaign. They called J.D. Vance a never-Trumper and were putting out the idea that he's drastically changed his mind to suit his political ambitions. I asked some pretty senior Republicans how they felt about this characterization of J.D. Vance as someone who has been on the record previously, years ago, very critical of Donald Trump and his campaign. This is how they've said that they're going to make that case to the American people.
I think the exact opposite. I don't think there's anybody that's embraced my father's platform more over the last couple of years than JD. He's come on thick and hard, and he's been fantastic. Those guys are going to work together great, and I see it behind the scenes, how much respect they each have for one another, and it's probably something that the media traditionally doesn't see, but they're going to make a hell of a team.
People who are critics of J.D. Vance say he's a never-Trumper, that he said some critical things about Donald Trump. What would you say to them?
I would say that actually that could be a unique attribute for him, if you think about it, and making the case to voters who did not vote for Trump in 2016. He could say something similar. You know what? I didn't vote for Trump in 2016 either, but here's why I came around. So I think that's actually could be what people frame as a negative, could actually be a very positive attribute. To me, I think he's one of the best fighters we have in the Senate. So the Senate is going to miss him. That may be the only negative, and I mean that as a compliment to him.
And Joe Biden was asked today what he thought of J.D. Vance as Donald Trump's pick.
What do you think of J.D. Vance? He's a clone of Trump on the issues. A clone of Trump on the issues. So I don't see any difference.
So, Kieran, we've officially wrapped on the first day of the Republican National Convention. Now the big finale will be in 2 days when we're expecting Donald Trump to take to the stage and speak. This will be his first speech on stage since that assassination attempt in Pennsylvania. But there's 2 days in between that of very important platforms, conversations, speakers, and this is where we start to see the speakers who are up-and-comers in the party. This is where people really make a name for themselves in front of Republicans from across the country, and it's where they put forward their platform to say to Donald Trump exactly what they want him to do if he takes back the White House.